Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ. I am your host, DBJ, and of course, all of you are co hosts on this channel as we continue our dive into this month's random selection of various role playing games that I have, both physically and in PDF form, that I believe best represents. Um, Black and indigenous and people of color, but specifically games that are extremely um, inclusive to our real world cultures, and of course, in our role playing fantasy, allow us to the space and the opportunity to express ourselves. And I thought I'd pick at least 20 plus days worth of these various games. So, hey Vince, what's going on? Oh, you're on holiday. Sweet, guys. So, for those who do not know when this show goes live, all of you that participate are, in my humble opinion, expert co hosts of the show, and I'm glad all of you can be part of this show. So, today I am going to do a page through and review of a game known as Everway. This game was developed by Jonathan Tweet. Oh, sweet Vince. Okay, okay. I'm sorry I didn't get back with you right away, but I went from hey, I'm allowed to get back to my show because I'm not working much to going back to 12-hour days. I can't stand it. But I love the show. It rejuvenates me, so I'm glad. Okay, so this game, just a little bit of a background for this game. This game was developed in 1995, and uh, the game is a collection of things that are almost never seen in role-playing games. It was very much ahead of its time, and they had a 25th silver anniversary edition of this game, and I'm glad to present it to you. Oh, you're all right, Vince. You're fine. It's believe me, place all of your blame in my way. Hey. Druten says, Everway was indeed such a neat game. I'm so glad to have it in my collection. Yeah. So what we have in front of us right now is the boxed set. And first of all, box sets can tend to be very expensive, which was one of there were a number of reasons why this game, air quote, failed, but it was brilliant in its design, way ahead of its time. Again, this game is 25 years old. And pretty much nothing has changed about it. I'll show you some of the changes, but it's really great. So Everway is this game, and mind you, what my hand is over right now, this is actually part of the character sheet. But Everway was a game where you played characters that were spherewalkers, in many ways similar to Magic the Gathering with being planeswalkers. And in this box set, you had a number of items in it, including character sheets. I placed these in sleeves so you can get an idea for the types of characters you played. And we also had ourselves two books: a Game Master's book, small book, half size. If you take a look at this 8.5 by 11 character sheet, there's a little smaller. And then you also had a player's guide explaining. You can hand this off to the players, and it explains quite a bit about their capabilities and such. And because this is a diceless game, you had a set of tarot cards. These tarot cards are actually from to um, this modern setting, the 25th anniversary, this silver setting. Open these up, and then let's see if I could bring this into the fold here. And it came with these cards. Now, these are art cards. On the front of each one of these cards, there's incredible art. It would be I couldn't imagine paying for this art today. But at the time, I don't know how or where Jonathan Tweet got access to all this artwork, but it is excellent. And on the back of every single one of these pieces of art are maybe a set of statistics for an adventure, or they came with a number of questions, basically story prompts and things of that nature about the nature of the card itself. Um, oops. For example, you may have a card here with a building on it and some kind of elements in the foreground and the background, and then on the back of it, it has a question like, "What is the building on the in? What is the building in the cliff? Who built it? What are the statues? Who is on the bridge in the foreground?" And these were story prompts. And the point of having these cards was that you really didn't need to prep very early for this game. All you had to do really is pull out a number of these cards, and you can start an adventure when the player characters go through a portal, go to another sphere, and then just go in. And if they make a left turn, you had a great piece of art to show them. You had questions that are said about, and even the player characters themselves could look at the art and find something in the piece of art. Yeah, Vince says where you just got cards with awesome designs and have to be creative with them. Am I the only one who has a bit of bad video quality? I can't really. It's not you. It's the automatic. Like for example, if I might have to turn down my. There we go. I've got three ring lights going on, and there we go. So if I zoom in here, you see a picture of these pale, maybe children. There we go. And then on the back are come on, come on, camera, be nice. Do these two beings know each other? What are they doing in this place? What is the person on the left thinking? Does anything live beneath the surface? And so, to do a quick perusal, you'll see there's artwork for all. There we go. Well, there's artwork for every one of these cards. Yeah, my camera is every time I move my hand millimeters, you just see it's that's interesting. Look at that. There's some kind of warrior or knight on a big cat with a castle in the background. All this kind of stuff. Maybe I'm holding them upside down. Doesn't matter. Every one of these great pieces of art, monsters, creatures, locations, etc., etc., etc. I would almost say it's worth the price to just get the cards and the artwork. But we'll get into the game because with a diceless game, when you have a diceless game, a lot of times it's because of the role playing community. We often wonder, well, how do you adjudicate a, an action? Like, where's the randomizer? If dice are used as a randomizer and it's supposed to surprise us, what's going on with adjudicating all the actions? So, in short, there are three methods to adjudicate action. The first one is what is called karma. Vince says, "Is this Afrocentric because the art looks very medieval?" It is. Well, okay, We'll get into this part. The reason why I pulled this game out is because, well ahead of its time in 1995, Jonathan Tweet, and I'm going to. What was that? Jonathan Tweet. I should have had my phone set aside. Jonathan Tweet specifically in I believe intended for this game to encompass plenty of uh, divergent cultures, so that they were nothing and no one and anywhere was seen. So while is some artwork in here that is medieval, there's a lot that isn't. So, for example, when we take a look at these sample characters, if I can page through the art a little bit, you'll notice that they come in all shapes and sizes. They come in all um, uh, genders and ages and things, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, John Wright says it's sort of like a Rorschach test, allowing your own thoughts and inclinations to steer the adventure. And Zamar says you would have to turn up video quality as well. YouTube tries it to automatically use the lowest initial. Yeah. Yep. 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 So each of these characters, you'll see, has a pretty good. I think has a pretty good um, range of of statistics and images and heights and all that kind of stuff. So on the back of each character, you do have like magic and powers. You have magic and powers on one side. You have a little bit of a background. There are questions for development. So all of these, even sample characters, have questions. And when you're designing your character, they want you to have open questions. Your character should never be complete. And then you have possessions. So for this character is named Whisper Walker. And then when you flip the character sheet over, you have her name, you have her motive at the top. Across the top of below that, you have three descriptors. You have a virtue, which is like a thing that the character is known for, like a positive attribute. You have a fault, and then you have a fate, which is something that it lies in question. And if please don't give me too much of a, there we go. So in a virtue, it's the hermit that comes with in this tarot card deck. There's a fault, also another card in the tarot card deck called Drowning in Armor. And then there's the Fate of the Phoenix. And then under each one, it gives you a little bit of a description. Like the Hermit is about wisdom, Drowning in Armor is protective measures turn dangerous, and Phoenix is rebirth versus destruction. And these are prompts for the person who's running the game, storyteller or whoever, narrator, to draw those things out of the character when you're playing. Um, Vince, this sounds a bit like Burning Wheel or World of Darkness. I would go there with that. So in order to adjudicate something, for example, this character, she does have stats. For her air stat is 3, her fire stat is 4, her earth stat is 4, and her water stat is 5. And if you notice, you don't see like strength or speed. This character sheet is very much narrative based, and in many ways this game and this world relies a lot on like mysticism and using tarot cards and interpretation and such. So the three methods of figuring out what you can do, success or failure, is through karma. And karma is essentially is what are your stats? What are you what are the numerical values on your character sheet versus the numerical values of the world? It's the gamist portion of the world, whether you succeed or fail. So for example, this character has a fire of 4, and she has a specialty of spirit battles, but fire is essentially your forceful, your active, and your action stat. And so fire kind of is basically your battle stat. It's your speed and your aggressiveness, like fire. So if this character were to go up against someone with a fire of 3 or less, she would win according to karma. With a stat of 4, she would be evenly matched, and things would have to change. And then if she went up against an opponent with a fire stat of 5 or higher, eventually she would lose. So that's the karma part of it. Now there's the drama portion. This is the second way to adjudicate something. Drama is about um, what is dramatically appropriate for the situation. So drama is about the maybe she's fighting on a cliffside. Does does that have anything to do with modifying maybe her fire stat? Does she quote unquote have the high ground or something? Maybe she has a relationship with the enemies and she brings up something from the past, or she threatens them, the enemy, with something, and basically it's situational as well as dramatically important, right? So uh, is the situation it to her benefit or not to her benefit? Then the third thing that takes place is using the deluxe fortune deck here, and they give you these are larger sized cards. They are not the size of like a standard set of playing cards or poker cards. They of course come with a set of like how do you read the cards. Here's some optional ways to read the cards, optional rules, and tells you about the various elements that are on the cards. And then you have the tarot deck itself. They are gold foil bordered on the sides. You can't tell which way they're facing, whether they are up or down, and that's important as well. And then on the other side, we have each of the cards, and then they have names at the bottom: the usurper, the defender, the creator, the eagle, the lion, etc., etc. There is a, you could call it a randomizer. They do have numbers up in the top left corner, so you can come up with random numbers. On the left border, you do have like in order air, fire, earth, and water. Not every card has represents all of the elements. Let's see if we can draw this in a little bit more. There are also, to the bottom left, there are zodiac signs, so you can use that as well. And every card, let's pull this out. Trickery. You pull this card out. If it's facing this direction, you have a positive element, trickery. If you turn it upside down, you do have a negative element, and this one says subterfuge revealed. And so interpreting the card is yet another part of randomizing exactly what has happened. Now, you could just basically do this as a pass fail. A positive element means that you succeed, and a negative element means you failed, or you can interpret the card as you wish. You could even hand these cards out. Maybe someone, a PC, takes a card from the top of the deck and holds it for themselves. For example, maybe they draw this card known as the heavens. So in order to succeed in whatever maybe physical action Whisper Walker is doing, maybe they have to read the stars or take the high ground again or something like that. Whereas had she pulled this card, maybe using trickery is the best way to navigate through a physical situation. Maybe if that card is drawn by the storyteller or the game master, maybe Whisper Walker, if Whisper Walker can detect trickery being used against her, maybe there's a decoy, she's being surrounded by enemies and doesn't realize it, then she succeeds, and so on and so forth. This is a beautifully made game. Strangely enough, something else at this game, other than not having dice in it, this game does not have a combat section. Everything that opposes the player characters in this game is handled exactly the same way, meaning that combat is confronted the exact same way you would have a social interaction or exploration or talking to spirits. Yeah. Yeah. Vince says, have you ever played the game before? It sounds like this would be a lot of arguing about results, which can be fun depending on the group. There is one of the negatives of this game, but strangely enough, one of the beauties is that the argument about the results of an action are part of the game. It's how to explain this. The push and pull, the narrative elements of this game is not about like min maxing and winning or losing. The minute you bring someone in this game, the BS meter goes off immediately. Any player that tries to overtalk the game master or sweet talk and all this, that the out of game negotiations that go on, you're really going to find that this is not the game for you. Uh, it's very the game is very much an open conversation that organically creates a story element that happens in the game world, right? And it's, again, it's very strange to describe it, but it's beautiful when it happens. Because Wayne, because I know, and like I said, the game came out in 1995. Not only was it hyper expensive to produce, a lot of people didn't buy it, and to say, "Oh, it's a diceless game that uses tarot cards and descriptions and thing," it really turned a lot of people off. And even now, with the silver anniversary, 25 years later, um, the people who own this game swear by it. It's really hard to get players into it. John Wright says that upside down thing reminds me of Nordic runes, where if a rune is upside down when pulled from the bag, the rune's meaning is reversed. That's exactly how it's done. Um, it, the the silver anniversary game actually does include a dice mechanic if that's what you really prefer, and it also goes a little deeper into optional rules. Like for example, on using this character again, the hermit, you could give this character these three cards to use to adjudicate something. So using karma, we already know what the numbers are. If your number is higher, you win. If the number is lower, you're going to lose. Narratively, the difference between your numbers will adjudicate how fast or slow your win loss situation happens. But you have that. Maybe, for example, she has a virtue of hermit, which is known as wisdom. And how I would do it is give this character that card, and then she can just use it like a Benny or like a fate point or moxie or something like a hero point, and go, oh, well, I'm having a physical battle and my fire score is 4, but boom, I'm going to throw in my hermit card for wisdom, and and I'm going to outmaneuver them. I'm going to use my wisdom to maneuver my way through this battle and maybe separate the enemies. We're in a place with valleys and sharp rocks and twists and turns, and I'm going to separate them. Boom, and then intellectually we go, oh, well, probably her fire score is probably going to even be higher, right? Maybe by 1 or more points. And each character has a specialty. So, for example, her physical fire score is not necessarily physical because she has a specialty of spirit battle. So maybe against spirits, ghosts, maybe the undead, those kind of things, mental intrusions. Her fire score is considered a 5. And same thing with her earth score, soul's wall of stone. So maybe she has a defense, her physical defense of 4, but it's 5 against spiritual attacks. And every character has these various differences. All right, Juden says, I've played it a few times and it always worked well, but I guess I'm lucky that I know people who are interested in narrative games. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Vin says, as it should be, combat is nothing special. All complications can be engaging. And yeah, physical combat in this game is given no more and no less weight than making a negotiation or navigating through a deep jungle or uncovering some spiritual secrets or talking with ancestors and that kind of thing. So yeah, and of course all of these, because combat isn't given any more or less importance, a physical fight could happen while the characters are speaking out loud to the opponents who are also role playing, and you know you can't come through the dreaded woods, we've seen your kind before, and the players are like, what do you mean our kind? Stab, 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 shoot, 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 slice, slice, right? It's the exact same thing. I mean, the narration of this game doesn't end when weapons are drawn, and because the game doesn't have a separate combat system, you can settle anything in any particular way. When I say there's no combat system, what I mean is there there are guidelines for, if you notice on this character sheet, you don't see hit points, you don't see armor class, you don't see mechanical bonuses of accuracy or defense. You don't see armor listed like armor or protection listed anywhere. You don't see healing. You don't see any of that because that is not important to this game. It's important is you could lose numbers in your stats, but they are all equally vulnerable and powerful at the same time. Vince says, can you choose those 3 cards for your character, or are they always random? You absolutely can choose them. As a matter of fact, when it comes to character creation, that is the whole point. You could pick 3 cards and pick them out randomly, or if you want to, you can lay out all the cards and randomly choose who gets to pick first. So you start picking those cards, and this stack of this the stack of artistic cards, it is suggested that you pick 3 to 5 of them, and 3 to 5 of these art cards are used for your to represent your character. Now, you could use it to represent what your character looks like. It could be used to, maybe this represents your PC. Maybe this is a relative or a dreamscape, or um, a realm you came from, or a nightmare, or anything that relates to anything that relates to your character, and you design your character that way. Was your character a pirate, or maybe a vagabond, or raised by thieves, or kidnapped? Who knows? It's up to you. All right, we'll get into a couple more things when I show you the silver anniversary version of this. Druten says, I would compare the game to the old TV show Kung Fu. Ooh, the Wild West one, in which the protagonist wanders from place to place and helps people. I absolutely agree with that. As each character is a natural sphere walker, and as they travel from sphere to sphere, it's a multiverse game. And so each universe they go to may have their own particular issues and problems. It's very Bronze Age-ish. So while you can go to worlds that have varying levels of increased technological presence, maybe sailing ships, or the game really is more about small community and exploration and things like that. Yeah, so basically like a planeswalker from Magic the Gathering. Absolutely. Uh, Absolutely. As some would see, this game was made in 95, but some would say it kind of existed in parallel to it. So let's take a look at this, because you gotta have the cool character, right? This character's name is Shadow, and let's turn Shadow over. So Shadow's full name is Shadowblade Dragon Seeker of the Clan of the Spirit Mountain, nicknamed Shadow, and has a motive of mystery. It's basically like it, a very loose alignment of sorts. And Shadow, of course, has a virtue, a fault, and a fate. So his virtue is the dragon, fault is autumn reversed, and then fate is war. And if you notice on the character sheet, you do have 4 stats, and then you have these 2 boxes, or polygons. One represents power, and the other represents magic. Yeah, this is basically Blade. Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. And during character creation, every character gets a power that is what is known as a zero cost power. And a zero cost power is like a mundane capability you can design on your own. They have guidelines on how to design these capabilities, but for Shadow's capability is called Weapon Master. It's a 0 point power, and Shadow can use any sort of mundane handheld weapon without training, though not necessarily siege engines, weapons that work by magic, and so on. Essentially, a master of every um, handheld weapon wherever Shadow goes, which is kind of cool, but it's kind of a 0 point power. Mike says, so whereas this game would not fit my current table, there are elements I would love to bring into a campaign. Yeah, there's a lot of things. And for additional powers, you can design your own powers, and the powers cost 1 point for one of 3 elements: frequency, general versatility, and essentially impact on the setting. How powerful is that ability? And it costs 1 point as you add one of those 3 elements to it. So a power that you can frequently use, meaning like you can basically use it without any restrictions. It comes up in combat. It comes up in social encounters. When you can use this power over and over again, it costs 1 point. And then it's versatility. How versatile is it? Is it only usable in specific circumstances, limited circumstances, or can it be used very often? And then lastly, how powerful is it? Does it give? Does it grant capability above and beyond everyone around them? So let's take. Hey Vince, yeah, I see. Yeah, the Dungeon 23. I haven't shown that recently, which I think I need to go through. So let's say you have a character that can shape change. So can they only shape change during the full moon? Then it's probably not frequent. But if they can shape change whenever they think about it, it is frequent. And then you have versatility. Can they only shape change into one creature? Then it's not very versatile. Can they shape change into any known creature or group of creatures that they want? Then you add an extra point because it's versatile. And then lastly, how powerful is it? Like, can they shape change into a monstrous creature that doubles their physical capabilities? Can they change into a creature that can fly and dig and swim and so on and so forth? So every one of these characters is really cool. Um, I like this character named Firesun, who would be the equivalent. There are no classes in this, but this character is kind of an equivalent of a cleric, and um, this character has a really cool power called Sweat Fire. And I know you guys can't see it very much, but it says it's a frequent power. It only costs 1 point. Fireson can cause flames to come forth from his skin. He cannot hurl the fire, and the fire is only as hot as a campfire, but it is still useful for deterring attackers, burning enemies, starting fires, keeping friends warm on cold nights, providing light in the darkness, and so on. This effect burns his clothes but does not harm him. And again, that's as much detail mechanically as you get in this game. So the idea is, how do you use those powers? I once played this character and appeared as a sun god in another sphere, but didn't have much information about the elemental religions that they had, and so it was kind of like playing it by ear. It was pretty cool. Vince says, I shape change into my human form. The real form is much more interesting. Mike says, the idea of tarot cards as a tool to tell PC past, present, and future, a campaign world that's made from the shattered pieces of other worlds, all elements I'd love to add. Strangely enough, the tarot card that comes with Everway is an in-world thing. So in world, even when you go to these other realms, the idea of tarot card reading and affecting the fates and such is an in world real thing. So your player characters can go to oracles to have their fates read, or maybe characters were born under specific tarot, the alignment of planets and the celestial order, and maybe there are even some beings that can tell and detect what characters' virtues, faults, and fates are based on the tarot deck. So it's an in-world thing, and it's kind of cool. Like, if we read off some of the stats. I'm sorry, this character's name is Chance, and I think it's kind of like a berserker. And on the character sheet, you have a number of descriptors. So not only do you have air, fire, earth, and water, air representing speech and intelligence, fire representing like force and activity, earth representing passivity, resistance, and might, and then water representing silence and receptiveness and feelings. But also, you you have opposing and combined elements. So air and fire together represent energy. Fire and earth together represents power. Earth and water together represents integrity, and then water and air together represent wisdom. So yeah. And then it's not written on here, but there's even opposing, like air and earth together, and then fire and water together. So pretty interesting. Pretty interesting. And again, a character like this, this is the only mechanical thing that this character has. This character has a power known as Berserk. In combat, particularly when threatened by overwhelming odds or an unexpected foe, Chance sometimes goes berserk. His strength and endurance increase, but he becomes completely lost to reason. He becomes unpredictable, striking out at friend and foe alike. Once the battle is over, Chance regains control only with difficulty. Going berserk leaves him exhausted. There are no other mechanical descriptors to this. So it's just a thing in the game, and I love it. I love it. So Vince says, so does a PC always have a deck with it? Uh if you're if the PC so chooses, sure. Sure, why not? But maybe not as well, right? Like, could a character have a deck with them? Maybe someone's playing a character that doesn't believe in the fates and tarot cards, or maybe they've been told their fate and are trying to avoid it, right? And so it becomes a story element unto itself. So yeah, you could have a character that actually plays the deck, you know. Jesse says deck is primarily used by the heroes in hero creation, and GM uses often during the game. Heroes can have a deck or not. The books also have a built-in card draw on each page. So let me bring up. So here's some of the characters and great images. And what I love about the artwork, there's a little bit of a splatterpunk texture to it. There's also like a little bit of a watermark in the background. So I absolutely love it. But if I bring up what was just said by Jesse McGath. Thank you very much for allowing me to bring this up here. So this is one of two books in the Silver Anniversary Edition. Let's see. There we go. Pretty thick. I suppose one of the reasons is that it does have a pretty large font to it, and there's a lot more artwork in these books. A lot more art. Uh, was able to expand a lot on information, especially when describing each of the cards that are used and how to use them in game and monsters and things like that. So there's a lot more into it. But let's see. For a diceless game, it does have a dice mechanic. uh, so if I open up the inside portion of the Game Master's book, you will see that it has a listing of all the cards and some of their meanings. So if I place a finger here, I'm pointing at a card known as the Smith, and it talks about the meaning is productivity. The reverse of the Smith is evil effort, and its correspondence is to air, fire, and Mars. So planets, um, uh, astrology is also involved in this if you like, as much as you like or don't like. And it also divides the cards up into, how do I say it, into categories of commonality and importance. So at the very bottom are a large number of deities, and then you have estates, beasts, follies, seasons, animals, duality, and a single card of the void. And next to each one of these cards, you have dice. So if you roll 2d6, probably using two different colors. Here it uses blue and red. You roll the dice, you see what card you come up with. And in addition to that, when you page through the book, at the bottom page, you pick a random page. At the bottom of each page, it tells you a card. The cockatrice reversed, trickery, the satyr reversed, drowning in armor. So there is a randomizer. Literally, the book is its own randomizer. The phoenix reversed on the right side here, the cockatrice on the other side, as well as the fact that, let's see, turn the book side landscape wise. Let's see if I can show this to you. There we go. And it also gives you a little bit of information about a piece of the art, so you can use that art as well, and then who created that art piece. And this was the 1608th piece of art. That's crazy. And then here's another one, Cage to Children. So it gives you a description of what that art piece is, and you can use that art piece in the game. Pretty interesting. Let's get back to our co-host here. So Vince says it would be interesting to first draw the cards once they entered a new place, or to decide where to travel to. And listen, that's exactly what you are thinking of, or if you guys have a thought in your head, that's exactly what this game is about. So, do you use tarot cards to build the world they're going to go to? Or maybe you use the tarot cards to create a series of events that are quote unquote destined to happen to the player characters. Maybe the player characters see this, the cards are drawn by an oracle, and they go, ooh, drown. You pull the card drowning in armor, and they all look over at the one PC that's got armor on, and they're like, hey, we get near a river, I'm not getting close to it, right? Like, that may be a thing that where the player characters literally railroad themselves because of what they think may or may not happen, which is pretty fun. Jesse says, somebody who maybe should be hosting this show other than myself. Yeah, Jesse says 1608 is image 8 of set 16. There are 12 cards per set. I never got the cards as individual sets, But if you go to the website, it will, and you go to the shopping portion of the website, which, of course, the website is known as Everway, everway.com. You'll see that you can buy packs of cards and they come in sets. And I'm presuming the sets are thematically related, but I don't know. I just purchased mine in a big chunks. Jesse said, "Oh, you're doing awesome. Well, thank you very much." Hey, that's why you're a co-host, unpaid, or rather, you're paid just as much as I am. Nothing, which is awesome. Yeah, and all the art is included in the books. Yeah, there's so much art in this game. Okay, so um, another aspect of this game that is, I'm going to say, is part of the difficulty and the beauty is that Vince says, "Hey, Chat GPT does know the game and even gave me an example of a card." Ooh, ooh. Um, because this game is so narratively focused, um, because this game is so, I hear you, Chat. Because this game is so narratively focused, far more than I would even dare to say some current narrative games, that this game is a perfect example of cooperative storytelling, meaning that how to what, the best way to explain it is the acceptance of failure. So when you have a character who's trying to perform an action and maybe they're trying to use some of their magic. I'll talk about magic in a minute and how magic powers and all of your stats add up to 20 or should add up to 20. Part of this is when adjudicating particular actions. For example, the number three, stats go from 1 to 10, and the average individual has a stat of 3. And unlike what we think of when we say a rating of 1 to 10, 3 is average, 5 is average for a hero. So 1 through 5 is the middle ground of like 1 and 2 being like weak and maybe elderly or something. Maybe someone who's been a noble and they haven't, gotten their hands dirty, basically. And then when 3 is an average individual of this world, 4 is above average, 5 is heroic. When you get into 6 through 10, these are characters that are super heroic. So a someone gifted from the gods would have a, maybe like Hercules would have an earth score of like 6, 7, or 8, and so on and so forth. And all of this description of the capabilities is extremely narrative. So this character Fire, they have a specialty of like dancing and partying. It's like, is that useful in most role playing games? Not really. In this game, narrative weight is just as or more important than physical combat, the ability to destroy things, the ability to kill monsters. There are no experience points given out for monster slaying or treasure accumulation or anything like that. It's all narrative. And the biggest hurdle to this game is basically everybody being upfront with what they want to accomplish, what kind of stories do they want to tell. It can be difficult to separate. For example, if I want to be an armchair writer and I want to write a story, and then I have players involved in the story without me railroading them because I want people to fit into my story, this isn't it. This is extremely cooperative. And so it could be a little difficult to get over. But once you start to play this game and you go, "Oh, I I get it," you know, once you get it, it's a beautiful game. It is a beautiful game. I think even now, after 25 years, I still think it's it is a game ahead of its time. Let's get back into our co-hosts here. Our co-hosts say, you're so funny. Vince says, the Wandering Traveler suit, Destiny image, a figure with a backpack standing in the crossroads of a forest path. Ooh, ooh. Over Chat GPT. That's called cool. Druten Fuzz says Everway and Fiasco have have both been highly influential for my own design approach. Yeah, it's um I think as far as game design goes, the idea that all actions can be adjudicated the exact same way really really by pulling the combat portion down and lifting up your creative problem solving up in the air and just making it equal really says a lot about your game in terms of how to solve a problem, right? So, for example, some people may say, "Well, what do you do in this game?" Great, we've got great images of artwork, we've got great characters to come in, and a lot of physical differences for all the characters and such. But what do you do, right? What does each character do in the game? And the thing is, the great part about that is, whatever you want, you don't need to defeat the evil. It could be, hey, you're taking a tribe across a desolate region, and your job is to make sure they're safe. That's it. Maybe you meet what in this world would be an alien race of some sort from a different sphere, and your job is to be envoys and bring them into the fold. Maybe the point of the adventure is to negotiate a peace treaty between two warring factions. Maybe there's a great cataclysm, and there are loved ones that have been lost. The um, what is it? Getting the cat out of the tree, saving the dog in the burning building, and that's exactly what you're trying to do. I mean, how many role playing games offer themselves up to just saving people's lives? And that's why I think this game really shines because yes, you could make this a combat game, but I think in many ways you'd be losing a major portion of this game. The reason why I'm bringing up this game in terms of here in the States Black History Month is because I'm picking games why by their design or not that are very emblematic of being able to express various cultural differences that we have. A lot of times when we play role playing games, we don't want to see ourselves in our real life. We want to be the superheroes in our own minds, right? And that means seeing ourselves presented in these worlds. And of course, you see a rainbow of colors. You see a rainbows of ages. I think this character is, if I remember correctly, yes, this character is 57 years old, kind of like me. Well, I'm not 57, but yeah, this character right here, 57 years old. You could see differences. Maybe these characters came from different spheres, ages. I love it. Vince says, "Oh, I just made an inspiration approach of how to build star systems in Astrocytus based on random charts to just inspire you to create the details yourself." Yeah, 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 yeah. This game gives a lot of empty space to create your own your not only just your own games but your own creativity, and maybe a little too much space, some would say. Um, Jesse says multicultural was a key design principle for the game, unheard of 25 years ago. I'm making a point about how old this game is because I know today, air quotes, there's this whole big thing about um, the positive and, of course, the negative implications of inclusivity and diversity and stuff. And I'm a person of a certain age that's like, wait a minute, this isn't something new, and this was ahead of its time. Like, for example, something that might go unrealized is that of all the NPCs, player characters that you can play that they're generated, it's a 50-50 split in general with male and female, or at least male and female appearing, right? That's yeah. Yeah, Vince says, yeah, this is revolutionary stuff in the 90s. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mike says, narrative games require a certain level of maturity and acceptance. That certain level, not so common. Yeah, common sense, not so common. It doesn't make sense, right? But yeah, just the fact that they went out of their way to go, well, we're going to do a 50% uh you know gender appearance. It was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. Also, what I love about this game is that, like, I'm going to take something from this character because I think this character is blank enough that's really cool. Of all these characters, they have capabilities, that are not that don't have a mechanical impact, but require a player character to be creative in their use of their capabilities. For example, this character has a 0 point power, and it says, clinch. When wearing her metal gloves, Opal can grasp with great strength and endurance. She could hang all day by one hand if she had to. Okay, what do you use with that? Like what? Do you? I mean, how do you implement that in a game of exploration? Well, of course, she could hang by her, by her fingernails for hours on end. But why would you want to do that? Maybe she can hold on to a massive creature that's storming through a landscape or something, and hold on for dear life. Basically, having an ability like, nope, I'm going to hold on to a scale and just and ride this out, right? Um, who knows? Maybe she puts her hands around someone's throat and squeezes and just stays. And the eyes pop out. But there's no mechanical feature to this. It's how creative can the player character be? And then as a game master, you go, yeah, that's badass. That makes sense. Also, strangely enough, as a person who's run this game before, by divorcing a lot of the mechanical features and making it very narrative, it doesn't matter how many monkey wrenches the player characters throw into your air quotes world. There's always more after that, right? It's not a matter of balancing encounters. It's not a matter of numerically figuring out, okay, what level are they? It's just throw a monkey wrench in there, let the characters do a thing, look up to the ceiling and go, that sounds badass. Yeah, you can do that. Yep. Yeah. Vince says, "Yeah, I tried playing Blades in the Dark. Oof, with normal players who only knew D&D or Dark Eye. It was not good, sadly. Yeah, Blades in the Dark and flashback mechanisms and all that. Yeah, doesn't work." John Wright says, it's beyond the concepts of winning or losing, or how many baddies you can slay, or how much money or loot your character gains. It's about the journey itself and interacting with others. It is exactly all that and more, which means that it kind of destroys like 75% of most fantasy RPG goals, right? Okay, so if the point is not to gain treasure, and the point is not to kill baddies, and J Dub is saying, and the point is not to gain levels or get more power, then what do? Well, the answer is everything else. Think about some of our greatest fantasy stories that are told, and it's about the relationship between um people who don't like each other. It's the relationship between family. It is the loner who finds companionship and love with other people. It is the survivor who's outrunning their deep past and stuff. It's all the ephemeral things that are hard to mechanize. So this game doesn't try to mechanize it. It just says, why don't we take all the other things out the way so that you can do these other things? And yes, it seems very pie in the sky, kind of, you know, um, hippie-ish, wiffly waffly kind of thing, but whatever. I still love it. I'll get to you to CBev. Um, Vince says this is basically a game for people who don't really need a game for much more than inspiration. You're not far off. Like I said, there are mechanisms to this game. These characters that I'm showing here, if you flip them over, they don't show their faces on. Let's flip this over. They don't show their faces on the front, right? There are stats given to these characters. Okay, um, even the magic system, which I'll get into in just 2 seconds. Who has magic? I had somebody here who has magic. There we go. We'll use this is Cleft. Good. Cleft's a good one. There is a magic system, but it's not like a CBev says, "What's this?" And hard to go back an hour and describe it. But this game is Everway. This game was created in 1995. These are two books that were created presently 25 years later, Silver Edition, and then there's the box set that came out in 1995. This game was created by Jonathan Tweet. a luminary in the tabletop um, RPG world, and Jonathan Tweet has gone on to create plenty of other games. Tends to be some on Wikipedia. They say Jonathan Tweet tends to make rules simple systems. So I don't know. Mike says, let's be fair. 5e inspiration could be used as a flashback. Yeah, like what we as GMs and players do in any game is completely in our hands. Mechanics or concepts from this Blades in the Dark or others are always available, but only to the willing. Just like a flashback mechanic. Flashback mechanic is actually pretty easy to implement. It's just about the context, right? There's not much difference between I try to charm the guard to let me pass the gate to can we say I spoke to the guard in a tavern 3 days ago and tried to persuade him then that when I now confront the guard, I was successful or failed to allow the guard to nod at me and let me pass the gate. Right? It's just a change of context. Not very much changes in terms of implementation. Vince says, "Yeah, I usually prefer faster combat, anyways. Yeah, even in World of Darkness is similar. 3 and out, slugfest. Right? This game, you can get as detailed or as zoomed out as possible. Right? Like you could have a 5-day battle with simply one mechanism. All right, what's your fire score? What's the other fire score? What's your earth score? Great. Okay, so after 3 days battle, you come out victorious and blah blah blah, blood splattered. You could easily run 15 battles in one session, easy. Or you could get down. You could make it extremely gritty, right? The you could extend the rounds of combat out as far as you want. You face each other across the battlefield. Both of you draw your weapons and you run towards each other. What's your fire score? Boom. Their fire score is blank. So you strike past each other. Your weapons, sending sparks into the air and blah blah blah. Maybe there's soft music playing and doves flying in the background, leaves blowing across the fields of battle or something. Like you could get as detailed and cinematic or zoom out as much as you want. So pretty cool. Vince says, one of the first advices I got as a young GM was steal like a raven. No matter how creative you think you are, there are so many more ideas out there. Yeah. That's why, like, basically, if you're a good GM, steal from your players. When they start talking and talking about all the ideas they have, just steal that shit. Steal it all. All right, so I promised to talk about magic. The magic system in this is nothing like Dungeons and Dragons. It is not blasty blast blast. It is not spell slots at all. It is very descriptive. And whether you have magic of the elements, and for people who love this game, they've come out and created magic, I'll say magic schools, whether they're based on the elements or dreams or certain types of desires and such. It is this The magic of this system is very much based on telling stories and manipulating the world and using ritual magic much more than blasting anything. One of the rules of magic, they say, is whatever your magic score is, if you have to make a number that it represents, that it can be no more than one less than any of the other statistics that exist in the game. So with a magic score of 5, it can create no effect that's greater than 4 in any one of the other elements. So if I use a magic score of 5, and this character is known as Cleft, and let me see, magic. There it is, powers and magic of soil and stone. Then if let's say this character wanted to shape the earth to grab an enemy or something like that, then it would have a stat no greater than 4. Hey, Mike, have a great one. Yeah, we're about to get out of here. So, Cleft, this character Cleft, has a magic of earth and stone, and a score of 5. It's actually pretty high. Clef draws on the fertile energy of soil and the enduring power of stone to work his magic. He is a healer, a ward against evil, and source of strength and health. As touch is the sense connected to earth, Clef's magic works through touch, especially through the hands. He also uses the bounty of the earth, plants, herbs, dust, and clay to work his strongest healing magic. In a single day, under his direct and constant care, a simple wound heals as though 2 weeks have passed. If Clef tends a wounded person daily, but not constantly, the person recovers twice as fast as normal. His touch can ease pain, stop bleeding, and keep a wound clean. With great and constant effort, he can prevent a mortally wounded person from dying and nurse that person back to health. Clef's touch and care can also, in order of increasing difficulty, cure diseases, neutralize poisons, lift curses, and banish malignant spirits. Particularly deadly or profound diseases such as leprosy, potent poisons, powerful curses, and mighty spirits, however, can resist his magic. Clef can promote health and prevent harm by blessing people, crops, wagons, and so on. He can improve a person's resistance to a particular danger, such as poison, words of power magic, or cold. And such a blessing lasts 3 days and nights. He paints a hand on the person to be protected to focus his protective powers there. He can, through a normal ritual, bless fields to encourage bountiful crops. He could even give some protection to a large, unified body of people, such as an army, though only through a long and tiring ritual. Yeah, Vince is like, yeah, Clef sounds like a character I would like to play. And again, reading through that, all of that is like a prompt for storytelling. Like, what happens when he comes back to a place that was blessed by his bountiful blessing? Maybe that tribe or whatever has grown and flourished, but maybe there's jealousy from neighboring tribes that weren't blessed by Clef, right? And then that story goes on and on and on. So again, guys, this is this is both the silver anniversary edition of Everway, a great game, well beyond its design. It just, I don't know. I think this game is worth the artwork. I think the game is worth its ability to inspire you, maybe for other games. And I think it's worth it. I think it's worth its value in gold in many ways, that Everway even exists in the first place, and it has a cult following. It really does. This box set here by Jonathan Tweet. Uh, let's see if I could bring it into focus here a little bit. Everway is magnificent, absolutely magnificent. So Mara says, from my perspective, 12 years in the field, okay. Tabletop RPGs have always been inclusive as far as not turning anyone away. As, as a whole, the issue is when you look at things at an individual level. Okay, okay. Um, and also, again, the reason why why I'm doing it, bringing up this game during this time, is just because elements of the artwork, character creation, story. Jesse says, there's a free gateway book on Drive Through RPG. Did you find it? Yeah, Everway. And there is a rare, let me see if I can bring up, well, I'll put this in the chat. Let me copy this here. And this is to their, so people can just tag this. I'll put that in the chat. And yeah, Drive Through RPG says some stuff. Zamara says, quote, I have the ability to reject someone from something now, and I was burned before, so I will exercise it to feel better. Then there's the fact that these games started off Eurocentric. Going on to your comment about rejection and such. Now, listen, a lot of times what ends up happening is we human beings, we love comfort and we love safety. And socially, that means that we like to surround ourselves with things we're familiar with. And so if you are someone who you may not know that it is being done, but if that's what you know, like Vince had said before, like being a little bit inundated with like Nordic Viking style tabletop RPGs and stuff, of which I have a couple, and Yeah, I love that stuff. I love the expression of culture in a role-playing setting, almost as if it's like a backwards way of teaching people, like, you know what? In the past, with the culture I come from, or a culture I didn't come from, but I'd love to invest myself in, man, this is how they lived and this is how they acted, and here's some of the mythological beasts they used to do battle with, and the stories they told, and that kind of thing. I love that kind of stuff. One of the problems is, like for example, like today with the issue about orcs, right? Like, why are we treating orcs different than any other racial species monster than anything else in the game? Like, why aren't tieflings and dragonborn treated with the exact same derision or care? Right? It's like, why is it treated differently? Well, then maybe there's something wrong with us to do that, right? So anyway, Zamar's large comment here says, this means most of the original and more notable examples will come from that source for good or ill about being Eurocentric. And what is considered European is considered white usually. That being said, the tabletop RPG space has always sought to draw in people with various mindsets by playing on the creativity of others as a whole. But I ramble way off topic. Sorry, not sorry. Yeah, you're fine. That's why I read it in the first place. So again, right. It started off, well, a lot of that too has to do with circumstance. For example, when you have a lot of cultures that use words to and stories instead of writing it down, you're going to lose a lot of that information. If you have a culture that has a lot of intricate writing and historical things written down and expressed in a physical nature, it's easy for historians to come along and read that and decipher what it is. So you're going to lose a lot. Like here in the United States, we have a lot of indigenous culture that's being lost generationally because it was never written down. It and Vince says, "Oh, I think this would. I think I would make this super weird if I ran it. Dimensions would be weird, in my humble opinion. Oh hell yeah, I would. You can make up any dimension you want by having these characters go anywhere you want to." Yeah, John Rice says, "This game concept is incredibly new to me. Thank you for opening my eyes to new things. If you have to go sling the mail this morning, take care, stay safe." And yes, I do. Lastly, before I get out of here, there are other things available in this game. It's not just loosey goosey. This is a map, a general map of the main world known as Round Wander. And this is the city of Everway. So there is an in-world version of this. This map is a little bit more detailed than this is the one from the silver anniversary. So this one has a bit more detail in it. It does have a way. I don't know if you guys ever remember buying roadside maps when you uh, drove through the United States, but when you had these maps, you always had numbers on one side, and it was grid work, and then letters down another side, and then if you needed to find something, like Everway exists in square number 4D right here. Okay, and then let's get to the back here. This is the city of Everway, the sovereign city, and it's basically a crossroads city. It is the in the center is the Walker's Pyramid, where the player characters can go to different dimensions. But then, of course, you can play politics and establish the characters can establish some kind of uh, uh, deals, intrigue, and that kind of thing. Politics with a lot of the factions that exist in the city, so you can do that as well. And then on the inside cover of the Game Master's book, because that's the player's book, gives them that. Jesse says Fate of Four Wind, a quest on Drive Through RPG, is very Aztec Mayan influenced. Yeah, Zamara says, I am personally very big on the Aztec culture. I am not of that culture, but I love it, so I use it a lot. I'm going, I use it a lot. Yes, absolutely. Oh, okay. Game Master's part, introduction of very simple inside cover, all the cards, a dice mechanic to randomly generate some of those cards, and a how the cards are divided up from their rarities, so you can use that as well. And then on the back of this book, there are Star River zodiac forces, so you can use basically zodiac signs. Here we go. There are the magical arts and some of their capabilities here. These are the semicircles for the character sheet, so you understand where wisdom, power, energy, integrity, will, and charm come from by comparing uh, the doubling up on the various elements on the character sheet. And then we have the elemental levels. So if your character has like an air score of 5, you're brilliant. If you have a fire score of 8, you're boundless. You have an earth score of 2, you're frail. Maybe your water score of 5 is sensitive, et cetera, et cetera. And then let's see if we can. Is there a character sheet? Oh, that's the Game Master's book. Oh, sorry. Blank character sheet. Back of the character sheet, front of the character sheet. I think it's photocopyable. I think it's scannable. I think they lightened it up and made it pretty much scannable. Um, the like I said before, you basically spend 20 points to make your character. They changed something a little bit from one system to the other. So this is a six-sided square over here in powers, a six-sided thing on magic. That's how the maximum number of points you could put in them when you take your 20 points and divide it up. In the old version, this was 6 points and this was 7, but they changed it back down to 6. So you have a way to grow a little bit and not make characters that are a little too powerful. And again, you pick randomly, or maybe you pick from your list of tarot cards for your virtue, your fault, your fate. There's a list of motives, basically like alignments, what motivates you to do what you want to do. And then when designing the character, you have a 0 point power, and then you have, believe, up to 3 points for your other powers. And they are divided by a descriptor of frequent, how frequent can you use it, how versatile is it, and called major. How much of a major influence do you have on um, on the world. So, guys, thank you so much for being part of the show. I gotta get out of here. I gotta get out of this place. Jesse, thank you very much for coming in for coming into the show. I really appreciate the fact that you were able to just give some insight because it's live, talking off the top of my head. Difficult to even get this game going. But yeah, the artwork in this game alone is probably worth the cost. I think the inspiration for this game is excellent to have alternate objectives for player characters. And again, since I'm analyzing this during here in the States Black History Month, I think it's a great game to leave wide open various types of cultures, like talking about Aztec, lots of all types of cultures from different periods of time and such. Just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So, guys, have a great one. I will see thee much later. Vince says, I mean, powerful is very relative in such a game where there is no real combat focus and the strength of encounters is mostly up to the GM. Yeah, yeah. Uh, as a matter of fact, I would contend that narrative powers are probably more powerful than combat abilities. Like, for example, we got a character here who's got a 0 point power called friend to fire. Fireson can feel heat, but it neither pains nor harms him. That's a 0 point power because great, immune to fire, whatever, big deal, right? How often is that going to come up? But then this character has a major and versatile power, which is known as priestly rites. Can channel divine energies and the energies of worshipers through powerful rituals. So I absolutely agree with you. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you, Jesse, for popping in. Gonna jump into the sun. Guys, have a great one. Tomorrow we're gonna go over the game to Genesis and probably show big chunks of the website. That's another game that I love, and it actually is the complete opposite of this game. I love the Genesis. Unlike this game, I love the Genesis because take a look at this artwork. Like I said, they went out of their way to try to really bring artwork from various artists, colors, cultures, Everything in here. I love it. Very Bronze Age-ish. Mm-mm-mm. The Genesis. The complete opposite of this. A game where being an asshole is all is everything. Guys, have a great one. I will see you later. Peace.